Hello, hello. So welcome to this Sagittarian new moon oracle card reading. I am just starting to feel into some of the themes present with this particular new moon. Sometimes they come in really strong, and other times it's not quite as clear. The one thing that I am feeling is the call to integrity and expression, like kind of talking things out. And Sagittarius is a very intellectual sign. It is stimulated by conversation, by good, meaningful conversation, and also very powered by freedom and truth. So I'm already like discovering that within my own life in the different ways that it's showing up for me, wanting to kind of work things out through the process of discussion. So I'm curious to hear what you all are experiencing. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe if you want to keep catching these videos. I do them every new moon, full moon, and any other major cosmic celestial events like eclipses, solstices, and equinoxes. So let's go ahead and just dive in to what the energies might be surrounding this new moon. I'm going to use several of the decks that I typically use, but I'm also going to use the Eckhart Tolle New Earth deck, which I don't typically do because it's not really great for readings, but sometimes it's just called for. So I am going to bring those in. Okay, so just feeling into one of the highlights of this new moon. It's a beautiful card here. See if you can see it. There's a lag on my streaming, so I'm actually not seeing this live. I have no idea if you can see it, but Hayaka, Sorcerer of Light. So this says, no enemy shall defeat you, not by night nor by day, not upon the earth nor in the soul. You are divinely protected and empowered. You shall fulfill your destiny with joy in your heart and laughter in your belly. Play. Be in nature. Feel the freedom of happiness within you even in this moment. These are your sacred powers, and with them you shall take every step upon your journey successfully, and nothing shall thwart your divine destiny. It goes on to say, ask for healing, mentoring, or assistance to support you now. And I may come back to this as the reading continues to unfold. So I like this just for the, this actually has come up a fair bit of remembering to ask for help. We have our guardians, our angels, our unseen benevolent forces that are helping to guide us, even our soul, our higher self. But if we're not willing to ask, that support doesn't manifest. We have to actively be engaged in that relationship, and we have free will. So if we don't ask, there's no outside force that's going to intervene or assist. So remember to ask angels, guides, whatever it is to you, God, universe. Just take that time to slow down and to ask. And something I've been hearing from other people in kind of zodiac readings, which I really try to not absorb a lot of that information so that my channel is not compromised or influenced by anyone else's interpretation of the energy. I have come across a couple of people just in passing by that this focus on right now, here during the season, especially with this new moon, starting to co-create. What do you want your next year to look like? What do you want your future to look like? What do you want it to feel like? So there is that little thread that has been dancing with be present and know that you have the assistance that you need to be able to move through any kind of challenge or obstacle, any situation, and to co-create intentionally. If we're not thinking about, let me pull back for a moment, because we do have to be present. However, if we don't take the time to really infuse our future with our hopes, dreams, and goals, if we don't take the time to really feel that alignment with it, we create unintentionally. And we don't want to do that. We want to be conscious creators. So how do you free yourself? In the deepest sense, you free yourself by finding yourself. At the heart of the new consciousness lies the transcendence of thought, the newfound ability of rising above thought, of realizing a dimension within yourself that is infinitely more vast than thought. You then no longer derive your identity, your sense of who you are, from the incessant stream of thinking that in the old consciousness you take to be yourself. Wow. Yes, 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 yes. And these two going hand to hand, one of them is from the Untethered Soul deck, and that's the one of freeing yourself by finding yourself. And then from the Eckhart Tolle New Earth, that talks about this, how we are in a time, a collective, cosmic bandwidth of changing into higher frequencies. So the conscious awareness of the planet is going through an awakening. It doesn't necessarily look like it to some people or at some points and periods in time, but it is happening. And I like the projection of what this card creates in my vision for the future, what I want to participate in, influence, be a part of, contribute, and I want to see and live in this world where we transcend the thoughts, where we rise above and we live from our soul. We don't live out of our personality, out of our wounds, out of our traumas, that we're living from the place that is infinitely powerful, that is the co-creator, that is the emanation of God, that is connected and creating with Source as an extension of Source. So I'm going to use this card as a point of stabilization for this co-creative process of being contemplative of what do you want your life to look like? How do you manifest more intentionally? How do you move through your day more intentionally? And anytime we're practicing this practice of getting to know ourselves, we become less identified with the personality, which can be consumed by the thought processes, the narratives, and the stories, and become more identified with the soul that is this place that exists of living from the place of pure potentiality and presence. And in that, it reminds me of not just thinking about myself and what I want to see happen in my life, but including the whole, including the collective. What do I want for humanity? What do I want for the world? What do I want for our solar system, our galaxy, and the universe? What do I want to co-create? What do I want to experience? External pains and difficulties are always the mirrors of inner pains and fears. They mirror to you what needs to be healed and transformed in your consciousness. I'd love to hear from any of you watching what has your experience been as we have we're getting deeper into the end of fall and moving towards winter. So fall begins the process of hibernation. It's just the beginning, that process of starting to lose the life. And then when we hit winter, it's the moving out of the decaying process and into the void, into the nothingness, into the darkness, into dormancy. So it's that state of pure potentiality. And in the dying process, it can be quite painful. And there's no process of letting go that is not uncomfortable. There's no process of rebirth that's not uncomfortable. For me, it really hit me last Friday. Oh wow, I'm going through a deep dying of identities that I've held on to for so long. The ways that I've identified as a professional, as an individual, as a group, and to myself, to storylines, to values, to my body, to my mind, to my spirit, my emotions, all of these things. I know for me, I'm witnessing it in other people too, because this is the nature of fall and winter. This is the nature of this season. So are you in alignment with that and working with death? Are you working with the dying process? And for any of you who may be new to this channel or new to this type of speech around death, it's the fact that there's always these cycles of creation and death and birth. So I don't mean it coming from a dark place at all. That's a personal interpretation, and I really mean it from the place of what is coming up to, what are your attachments that you're clinging to in this process of dying and letting go and surrender. External pains and difficulties are always the mirrors of inner pains and fears. If you are experiencing this on the outside in your relationships or in your body, is there somewhere that you've denied yourself of acknowledging your suffering? Is there somewhere that you are unwilling to trust the process because the fear has taken over the rational mind, has taken over the part of the brain that sends us into fight or flight? And maybe just writing down some of these things on the new moon, writing down where you're having pain, writing down where you're having these attachment anxieties, struggles, and see if you can create some kind of correlation. See if you can open the space to say, okay, so if this is a mirror, where does it point back to inside of me? So if you run into a situation where you're getting triggered, here we are going into Thanksgiving week, like that can be a very triggering time for many of us, being around family. Just noticing what part of you is triggered at what age. Is it the inner child? Most of the time it is. What triggered you, and how is that a indirect relationship with some part of you that needs to be held, needs to be acknowledged, needs to create the internal parent that protects and loves and holds compassion and space for the inner child in its difficulties. And the word play comes back up again too. So let's keep going and just see. Allowing ourselves to play. Dying's not fun, but when we let ourselves die to the unknown and let our attachments, our judgments die, it does create the space for an innocence to dwell. The innocence of a child who hasn't been told who they are or what something is, but they get to discover it. There's this sense of limitlessness and magic. So can we welcome that in this process of decomposing? Surrender. Surrender. Courage. We can't surrender without courage. It requires a lot of heart for us to be able to trust enough in the unknown to be able to surrender. The other card here is change. I understand that nothing can grow or evolve without movement. Decomposure, dying is movement. I find inner strength to face fear with confidence. And in that process of undoing, where you become uncertain of who you are in the world, who you are to yourself, when you feel the loss, the grief, maybe, when you start to realize what it is that's being let go, being disidentified, but also like a feeling of being lost, wandering. It can be scary to not have any foothold or railing, or it's like being in the dark. And that's what another good way of looking at this is, being in the dark. You can't see what's around you. You don't know what's in front of you. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen to you? What could happen? The mind starts to reel, and all of the stories come up. All of the fears come up in that space of darkness. And then there's a moment where stillness, silence happens. And it takes courage to stay. It takes courage to stay in that process of dying. It takes trust that ultimately what you know at your heart, that you are a child of God, that you are a part of this universe that can never be destroyed. only changed, transformed. That part of you never goes away. And if you can find that place amongst the darkness, the fear, the depression, something will start to happen. This generation of possibility can start to happen. So it's only when we fully surrender into that, totally let go, abandon the world to be with the self, to be with the God self, the Christ self, the soul self, the I am presence. Once you have allowed that process, the void offers you the opportunity to vibrate and then create from that. So this is now what I'm seeing in this reading is why many of us are getting this guidance to start feeling and contemplating how we want to co-create. We don't want to wait until we're in the void. We want to take some time in this dying process, right? There's like this review, the letting go, the being with the loss, and then there may be hopes that are stirred. Maybe from some of the reflections, you decide that you want to do something different when you're reborn on the other side. You know, rather than waiting until New Year's Eve or the next day, let's start to generate this energy now. Refine it, purify it. Sagittarius is a fire sign. Is it a fire sign? I believe it's a fire sign. So there's this purification that can happen now. And in that it's a distilling where you can leave behind everything that was not honoring and in alignment and true. And all that's left there is what's real. And you can say, yeah, that's what I want. That's what I want. That's what I don't want. So now I'm just going to deal with what I do want and move forward in affirmative ways. Sometimes it can be hard to actually to act on what our longing is, on what we're wanting to manifest. Sometimes this is the time for just the contemplation, for the allowance, for the rest, for the surrender. And there being some focus on the body, really cherishing and nourishing the body, because that's the vessel that you've been given to create through. And if the body is unsettled, if the body is unwell or inhibited in any way, then you're going to be limited to the ways that you can express the new life that you are growing in your consciousness. Solar plexus is one of the cards that has come up. It's safe for you to be powerful and to take charge of your life in positive ways. And a card that we have been getting all year long, vegetarian, vegan. Watch your food. Watch what you're putting in your body. Don't be fooled and receive things, consume things that have been altered in such a way that they are causing sickness, disease. Be very conscious of what you are absorbing. And here, this is go with more vegetarian, go with more vegan. This is something that I know for me, it's a massive difference when I eat meat. Um, my intuition is not as sharp. My inner sight is very dull. Um, my ability to process and be present is kind of muddied. It's harder for me to really be within my essence. And um, I think that there's a lot of benefits of eating intuitively, and I'm a big intuitive eater, but my intuition generally 99% of the time tells me to eat vegan. There is that 1% that sometimes my body will ask for meat. But it needs to be like a pure meat. It needs to be an animal that was treated well. It lived a happy life, and that it wasn't pumped full of hormones and fed GMO crops and things and lived in an environment that it's just heinous acts. Because that becomes a part of you. You now have become an extension of the memory of those plants, those animals. So you just want to be really conscious during this time. If you want to create from the highest place of awareness, the vessel needs to be clean. It needs to be healthy. And of course I say this without any judgment, because I myself, have struggled, especially here in the last several weeks, with keeping my diet as clean as I typically do. So there's no judgment in doing any of it. That's only going to compound the issue. But to have the will to set a standard for yourself and stick to it. I'd love to hear how you go about doing that. Is there anything that you're wanting to set a better standard for yourself out of love and care, not out of hate or defense, not out of because you want your body to look a certain way because you don't accept it as it is, but rather because you want to love it more. The solar plexus, it's our sense of self. It's also the sense of discipline. It is our ability to make these commitments. And it's a place too where when we're in alignment, when this is a center is clear and functioning properly, and we've worked on the traumas there, our need to control, our shame, our fear and frustration, and need to siphon energy from outside of ourselves, which is what control is essentially, worry, anxiety, all of these things. When all of that is neutralized, let me say it like this. Part of the process of neutralizing that is submitting your desires to the will of God. So it's an alignment of what I want to what is best for the whole. What I want, and then what source, soul, is guiding me to do. Which, talking about food, maybe the soul has been guiding you through the body. It's like, hey, it's time to give up that habit. And you're like, yeah, but I don't want to. Personality wants to do it for all of its reasons. So when you start to use disciplines to bring you into the alignment of divine will. And when you do that, you have this incredible access to power. And you become an axis of power. And this is a vital process in the ego death. We surrender our attachments, who we thought we were, the places we were getting our power from that were not rooted in the infinite source of power, in the soul. So to me, this says there's probably a lot happening with solar plexus. Solar plexus pairs with the heart, so it would be both of those. It's working through our emotions, our feelings. Coming back to the card about suffering, about the mirror of inner pains and fears being stimulated by our outside world, and recognizing our own suffering, where we denied ourselves of seeing the inner child or seeing some level of suffering and compressed it, suppressed it, depressed it. As we do that, this is also helping to balance out any part of ourself that is out of alignment with divine will, where the personality wants to be out of control and wants to live in a way that the mind tells it it's free, when really it's the opposite of that. We become a slave to all of these outside circumstances because they're attachments that we are retrieving our power, our value, and our pleasure through. Wow, what a really solid reading. Just see if there's anything else. Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit more from this top card. And I'm just going to scan through, so it may take me a few moments to see what is important here. It's the reminder of asking for help. So as we start to move through all of the little deaths, the ego deaths, the transformations, when we're wanting to ponder and concentrate on what we want to create when the time is right, ask for help. If you can't get clear on something, ask for help. Ask for that guidance. And this is that development with the soul, like stronger relationship on leaning on your soul for its wisdom rather than being undermined by the personality and all of its stories of self-doubt and self-importance, and just remembering that you have access, infinite access to the universe and to angelic realms and those who help to guide, heal, and support humanity, and you in particular. This support will help you feel stronger and more empowered to deal with any challenge, and be reassured that your spirit can handle it. There is spiritual protection for you now as you follow the guidance to explore conscious movement and creative self-expression. This can stir up old energy, releasing it from you and allowing vital presence to take hold within you. You are going through an initiation in which you will need to reassert your happiness and joy anytime it slips into the darkness of doubt, fear, and anxiety. Time to dance, sing, drum, and affirm your aliveness with joy and courage. Become spiritually bolder in the face of anything that attempts to diminish you. Have faith in the power of the divine being, the supreme power. You are watched over by love. Most modern lifestyles make it difficult to live in an honest relationship with the mind and body. It can be tricky to find the time and place to authentically and spontaneously honor our nature, our natural needs for expression and flow. So we summon our wisdom and creativity to find a way. We must be willing to move with the storm wisdom within us, or we shall be moved by the storm wisdom around us. Permit yourself to explore a more authentic relationship with yourself, and trust that in the process, the changes that will happen, and sometimes those changes will include how and where we live and work and with whom we share our lives, will be healing. Okay. So just a recap of, as we move through the season that is about surrender, that is about death, that is about the transformation and the change that occurs when we are willing to dissolve ourselves to become nobody, to become no one and no thing. That we have to call on divine assistance, that we have to seek wisdom and guidance from something bigger than the small self. And it takes courage to be able to do this. As we do this, it may not be the time to engage in the creative, active process, but to rather contemplate what it is that we want to intentionally co-create moving forward when we are through the portal of death. If we keep the vessel clean, we eat healthy, we don't put things into our body that are man-made, that we don't know where they come from, that we don't know their background, or that have a history or intention of maliciousness, of unconsciousness, then we can keep the vessel clear enough for the consciousness to transform, and the suffering becomes more limited. We're able to let go because we're not holding on to as much. And in this, there is the request to align to sacrifice, to let go of our will, our desires, our pleasures, in order to follow our intuition, in order to be in alignment with divine will, to trust that guidance, to trust that process, and to use forms of self-expression during this time to really work it out, to get clarified, to find your courage, to be okay with being settled. You know, one of the easiest ways in the body for us to find stillness is first by generating a good bit of movement. So dance, sing, exercise, do yoga, do breath work, you know, just move around, ecstatic dance, whatever would allow you to move the energy that might be stagnant, that you might be holding on to, so that you actually can be more okay in the surrender process. I don't want to say comfortable, because we want to learn to be okay in discomfort. And using all of those outside sources of stimulation, those trigger points, to reflect back on yourself. What am I not seeing? Where have I not acknowledged my own suffering? Where am I holding on to old fears and stories? And how can I just, through the acknowledgement, love and have compassion for myself and my humanness? How do we free ourselves? By finding ourselves. And as we co-create from a place of infinite potential, we don't limit it to only our desires, but we include the collective. So I thank you all for receiving this transmission. So grateful to share this with you. Very grateful for the higher guidance and wisdom that has flowed through, and provided this oracle reading. And I hope you all have a beautiful Thanksgiving. Until we meet again, keep it pure, stay simple. Pura vida.